Hey guys, welcome back to the Counterintelligence Training Center. We're going to make us a board today. This is on request of one of our franchisees. It's a slight variation on the hand marble. We're not really going to use our hand as much. We're going to take a wider blade putty knife. Going to kind of do the same type of thing, but you're going to see a slight difference after we hit it with the isopropyl on exactly how the colors work together. So that's just a little bit of liquid walnut. A little bit more up there. Okay. Now we've got some bone, which we're going to kind of go around mostly the walnut. And we've also got a little bit of our taupe. These are all liquids. There's no metallic pigments in this one today. I am going to pour some of the taupe over top of the walnut, trying to make sure we get a good marbleization of all these colors. You may notice that I put a large area of walnut in the center. Not really in the center, but we definitely, with this piece, we're looking for something that's got a little bit bigger areas of color shift in it. We don't want it to be quite as uniform as what a lot of our hand marbles that we kind of do as our base foundation. You can vary the look that you're going to get, whether you're going to use your hand or whether you're going to use a putty knife, by the way that you pour out your colors. If you pour them out in bigger areas, say, you know, if you've got darker colors and lighter colors with a little bit of the dark over here and a little bit of the light over here, you're going to get a more of a dramatic shift across the piece. Whereas if everything's kind of balanced, it's going to stay pretty neutral across the board. So we're just going to take a putty knife, a plastic one. You could use a metal one, but you know, plastic's better. They usually have a beveled edge on them. And all we're going to do, kind of like our switchblade technique, but we're not going to change and go crazy directions. Okay, we're just going to start spreading this product out. Going to kind of keep it going in the direction that we poured it in. This epoxy being so warm is going to change the way this looks. It's very liquid. See how much it's sliding over itself? Yeah. Oh, it's so warm. So whenever you're using the blade, you kind of want to get the whole top covered. But you can kind of come in and twist your blade so you can get some skinnier areas running through. You don't want it to be too uniform. We're always preaching random. You kind of want this to have a flow to it, but you don't want it to get too uniform. So you can just change the direction that you're holding the blade, make it thinner, make it wider, do a little bit of all kinds of sorts of stuff. And what this does, if you're using just your hand, as you spread out the product, you're kind of creating a wake. You're pushing like this dark color out of the way, and then the light color takes its place. By using this blade, we're really more allowing a little bit of these other colors to get over top of the dark color. So when we hit it with the isopropyl, it's going to create more of a webbing effect with some of these lighter colors over top of the dark area. And you can change these colors however you want to. You don't necessarily need a dark spot. But let's just say right here, like I'd really like to have a little bit more color. I'm just going to take some of my color that's dripping off. I'm going to add a little bit of color over the top. And I'm going to use this blade. And I'm just going to kind of come in here and create a little bit more effect. That was a little bit too plain and brown for me, for my liking. So then I just added a little bit of color, and all that's doing is just allowing a little bit of that color to be on top. That way when we hit it with the isopropyl, you're going to see the walnut underneath, but it's going to kind of create a webbing effect. I think you'll like it a lot. It's just a slight variation over what we do with the hand marble. And that's really with the 5 techniques that we start you with here at Counterintelligence when you come in for training. You can make it basically an infinite amount of types of granite and marble effect with these 5 techniques by making very, very slight adjustments with what you're doing. So now, before I hit it with some isopropyl, I'm just going to take my gloved hand and go around my edges. Make sure that I've got a good coat of epoxy. Any dry spots on the surface, all I got to do is touch those with my finger. Okay. Awesome. Then we'll hit this with our isopropyl and watch what happens. So whenever you spray this with the isopropyl, over here where we have this big area of walnut and there's not a lot of color over top of it, don't hurt. If you see some of your primer color coming through on the walnut, give it a little bit of time to settle. If after it settles for a few minutes, if you still have some ghosting coming through of your primer and you're really unhappy with it, you can always play with it a little bit. You can add a little bit more epoxy. You could take some of your drippings. You could fix that, but try not to touch it if you don't have to. You can actually already see in some of these areas right here where this color's just over top of the walnut and is kind of creating this web effect over top of the walnut with the light colors. Now, if I had used my hand instead of the blade, when I pushed that through, it would have shoved more of the walnut out of the way and just replaced it with those other colors. By using the blade, it's more over top of those other colors, so it allows it, when we hit it with that isopropyl, the layer upon layer, it just gives it a different dimension and a different effect. So once again, we're always just looking for things to be nice and natural. So down here, we may have to touch this up down here. It's a little bit thin after hitting with the isopropyl. I could see a little bit of bleed through. But up in here, we're looking absolutely gorgeous. The bone and the taupe and the walnut are just working so well together. It's very, very pretty. Down here, I'm just going to keep an eye on it. If I need to, I can add a little bit more color. It's really not that big of an issue, but it's starting to fill in. So we'll just make sure that it doesn't look blotchy like that. And that's really all we need to worry about. As long as that color kind of fills in, we're going to be in good shape. Okay, so I'm just going to show you real quick. I can take some of my drippings down here where it's a little bit thin, and I'm just going to add a little bit more epoxy, kind of in the same kind of color tones. Just going to kind of blend it in just a little bit. I'm going to grab that blade again, because I don't really just want to dig into this with my hands without hitting it with the blade, because it is going to be a slightly different effect. So that's just going to kind of smooth it out and make it like the other colors were. And then I need to re-hit that with isopropyl, and it'll blend right in like it was never there. So once again, just real quickly, this is just a variation of our hand marble technique. We're not really using our hand, but it's the same kind of premise, same kind of principle. We had a flow to our board. We were just, instead of using our hand, we were using a putty knife. And you can use any size that you want. They make them wider than that. They make them narrower than that. You could do a mix and match. You could do some of it with your hand. You could do some of it with a putty knife. You pretty well have the freedom to do whatever you want. Just play around with this stuff. Always be pushing yourself. Be looking for new ways to get new looks and slight variations on the same look. Now, if I did this exact same color combination, just using my hand, it's going to look very similar to this. You're just not going to get as much of the color over top of other color. It's going to be more like there's a streak of this color and a streak of that color and a streak of this color. Whereas with this technique, you get a little bit more of a base color underneath with a layer on the very top. And once we hit it with the isopropyl, kind of creates a webbing effect. So that's really the point of this slight modification to the technique. So as always, please engage us in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. That's how we grow. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.